So, February's whiskey box.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice ones, I have to say. One of my favourites ever, and I love the bottle. So,
Nice branding.
nice branding. Although I have discovered the tin is 10 millimetres too short to use as a spaghetti tin, which is really annoying me. And the answer from Bruchadic was go and buy some Optimal, the tin's bigger.
Ah, good retort. I like
Which
that.
I
Well
did.
done,
I
man.
thought, well done.
Yeah, good job. Right, Bruichladdich, a personal favourite. I have to admit my interests right at the start. Well, as is yours as well, isn't it? So this is Islay, an Islay box, which can be challenging for some people if they're just starting out with whiskey. There's no two ways about it. However, what we have here are the two kind of polar opposites of Islay. We have two unpeated Islas and two heavily peated Islas. So, as a sort of a broad overview of Islay as a whiskey production area, because it is its own recognised whiskey production area, you have the heavily peated Islay distilleries, or the distilleries that produce heavily, or known to produce heavily peated malt down the south, along with Kalila and Kilchoman now up in the north. You then have in the north the two which are traditionally have been very, very softly peated, but now have gone to the completely unpeated level, the first of which we are enjoying here, which is Bruichladdich. And they're two up in the north of the island, and then in the middle of the island, roughly, you have Beaumont, which is peated to somewhere between the two. So, anyway, we're up in the north with this. Next door to Port Charlotte. Bruichladdich, it's been through a lot of ups and downs. It was reopened in 2001 after, I think, a 10-year closure, or 10-year mothballing. It was not given much love prior to 2001. It was then taken on by a consortium, a small consortium of like-minded whiskey enthusiast wine merchants from London, and they basically fell in love with the place, along with Jim Murray. Jim McEwen, who was heavily involved, and the master distiller there, decided to move up fully, live on the island, and started producing loads of different expressions. And because of their wine background, specifically Mark Rainier's and Simon Coughlin's wine background, they put out an awful lot of expressions, lots of different funky things. They sold out to Remy Martin a couple of years back, and the range contracted massively as a result, as Remy decided to take stock of what they had. So we went through this funky little period where there was very little Bruichladdich, really. It was just a handful of expressions. The normal, now, as they refer to the classic laddie, completely unpeated, whereas previously Bruichladdich was ever so slightly peated. So for the purists, a lot of Bruichladdich fans, that's why they loved Bruichladdich, because it had a very, very small amount of peat, which marked it out as unique on the island. So somewhere between 5 and 10 ppm. Bruichladdich now has done away with it completely. So you shouldn't be able to pick up any peat characteristics on the nose or the palate, really. And that's what marks them out as different. Bottled at 50%, which can be a wee bit challenging for some, but this isn't really, I suppose, targeting beginners to whiskey.
It's very soft, 50%.
Very, very. When you bear in mind that a lot of the very best whiskies nowadays, especially the likes of Bunahab and Springbank, who started it all, bottle at 46%, which is the magic number for not needing to chill filtrate and colour. The jump from 46 to 50 ain't much.
No.
So a lot of people will look at a 50%, especially if they're coming at it from a supermarket perspective, They might look at 50 and get the fear, but a lot of folk will be buying 46% single malts.
But that doesn't burn even remotely.
No. Hmm. So, you'd be forgiven for picking up a bottle of Bruichladdich and saying, this is a little bit daunting. It's 50%, it's a non-age statement, there's not a huge amount to tell you there, so if you're brand new to this, that can be a wee bit daunting. But what a whiskey. Beautifully fresh and sweet, saline fresh, coastal characters. Everything is done at the distillery, and that's the key for this. Absolutely everything. From distillation all the way through to bottling. The only thing they don't do is they don't malt their own barley there. But they do, for this particular product, they bring the barley in from the mainland. They have a parallel line for Bruichladdich, which is called Bruichladdich Isla barley, and that is purely from barley from Isla, which marks that out.
Yes, because I went to a tasting, which was all Bruichladdich, and some of them were saying, oh, it comes from that field there.
Yes.
From that farmer, from that field, from that year. I can tell you that much about it.
The provenance is everything. They love to refer to provenance. They love to refer to the term terroir, which is a wine term, and that all comes from Mark and Simon's involvement in the wine trade. Terroir was never mentioned in the world of whiskey before then. It just wasn't, and a lot of people will, raise their eyebrows at it and question it within the world of whiskey and how that translates through the distillation process, and that's maybe fair. However, I think when you look at a specific field of barley and you see the differences between that particular Isla barley version of Bruichladdich and the next one, you can see the difference.
Yeah, I mean, this was actually the whiskey that got me back into drinking whiskey. Strange enough, but I love this one.
Yeah, it's very, very, very well made. Right. Sorry, we should have added a touch of water maybe just to do this more properly, dare I say it scientifically, but
we should. It's just so nice.
It goes to show how well it's made. It doesn't need the water to bring it down.
Right, and then move on to Bunnahabhain.
Bunnahabhain, yes. So the second unpeated whiskey from the island that is renowned for peated whiskies.
And we're deliberately drinking them unpeated to peated, I take it?
Yes. Yeah. If we go the other way around here, you're going to struggle to get the subtleties from the Bruichladdich and the Bunnahabhain because of the strength and the power of the peat characteristics which come in the next two. So Bunnahabhain is right on the east coast and the north of the island, and it is the original, dare I say it, unpeated Isla. They are the only, sure I'm right in saying, the only Isla single malt distillery that draws its water, its distillation water, from a spring, as opposed to a burn or a loch. And as a result, that water comes from deep, deep, deep underground. So there is no interaction with peat bogs, lochs, heavily laden peat lochs or burns. It's coming from deep underground, and it's sometimes millennia old. So that's the distillation water. They order unpeated barley, so there is no peat at all, and the bottling water again is unpeated. So what you end up with is the second, if not the original, unpeated Isla. And again, Bunnahabhain love to celebrate their maritime heritage.
Yes, they've got the guy out the front, haven't they?
It is absolutely key to why they exist in the first place. Everything was brought in by boat at a time. I mean, the road is still rubbish, absolutely hopeless. But it's getting better. But yeah, back in the day, everything was brought in by boat.
I mean, to me, that smells sweeter.
Yes. So the key to why I wanted to show these two. You might in a box of 4, you might question why isn't there, say, a Bullmore in there? where we could show something that was midway peated. But I wanted to show the influence of sherry cask and on pretty much what is a not a dissimilar style of whiskey. So you see the colour again, completely uncoloured, unchill filtered, natural colour for this, as with Bruichladdich. In fact, as with the next two as well. So the colour is what you get, and that is coming from a lot of sherry cask influence. There's a deepness, and bearing in mind that they're not colouring, therefore this will change from batch to batch. And
is that why you have a dark bottom?
yeah, yes it is. If you look at the one next to it, the big strand, it's very pale. It's a lot younger, to be fair, but it is very pale. And some consumers might look at that and go, well, that can't be very good because it looks too young. Whereas, if you've got it in a completely opaque bottle, like the Bruichladdich and near enough with the Bunnahabhain, then you don't have to worry about the variation in colour. So we've gone from predominantly ex-American, ex-bourbon cask maturation for the Bruichladdich, maybe with the odd sherry cask in there just as they see fit, to maintain the consistency of flavour, to a sherry dominant maturation for the Bunnahabhain 12, and the depth, the breadth, the mouthfeel, and the obvious difference in flavour that brings to the party. And the key to this whiskey again is no peat. Super fresh, maritime character.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
I must admit, with sherry cask, I smell putty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I smell putty, but I was thinking, I didn't actually realise it was a sherry cask, because I do no research or anything before I come and sit down with you. I just drink the stuff.
It's not just sherry. There's a combination of lots of different casks here, but that dryness that you're getting on the length, the sweetness, the kind of nutty, walnutty characters all come from the sherry cask. There's a little bit of fruitcake, thank you very much. Just the tiniest flavour.
That was a bit much, sorry.
It handles water really well, actually. And I think their magic number is 46.3, which is very specific. Yes, it is, 46.3. And that's their preferred bottling strength. They don't have to colour much of filtrate it this strength. So yeah, that was the thinking behind that. Two unpeated Islers, nice counterpoint of maturation to show what can be done with...
But very different.
Completely different because of the maturation stuff.
Both delicious, but very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Different styles of whiskey for possibly, dare I say, different times of the day. You might suggest that the Bruichladdich, classic laddie, is more of an aperitif style, whereas the Bunnahabhain 12 is more post-dinner, or to be enjoyed in a nice bar. Not to say that you can't have Bunnahabhain 12 as an aperitif, it's still fresh enough, especially with a little bit of water.
I know what you mean though, that you could happily sit in one of those wingback chairs and just
it's
quietly sink into a long evening on that.
Absolutely.
Right. And the big strand.
Big strand, right. So I wanted to show a slightly different take on single malt production. Bear in mind this is again from Islay. This is a single malt from one distillery, still in the north of Islay. But what we have here is we have an independent bottle. So the other three are all what we refer to as distillery expressions, bottled by the distillers at the distillery, and that is their core expression. Mm-hmm. A lot of distillers will sell stock, and some independent bottlers will pick that up, and some will bottle it as a single cask entity, which is unique in its own.
Like the one we had last month,
Canmore, yep. And some will do a sort of an expression of their own, a vatting or a bottling of their own, and that's what we have here with the big strand. So it's a brand bottled by an independent bottler. In this case, this is Morrison and Mackay, the same bottlers that we looked at last week.
Mhm.
So this is them attempting to create a brand of their own based on one single malt, and it's Kalila. So Kalila is very close to Bunnahabhain in the north of Islay, and it's renowned for being heavily peated. And we're upwards of anywhere between 40 and 50 ppm here, so it's punchy. And that would be the immediately obvious difference between this and what preceded it.
It smells, to me it smells medicinal.
Yes, it's medicinal. It's not as medicinal as a couple of the southern Islay distilleries, Lafroig and Lagavulin in particular.
It's very nice. It's a nice smell. It's so clear though.
Yes, very, very.
It's almost water.
And again, no age statement on this, like the Bruichladdich. So they've kept their options open in order to be able to maintain the consistency of flavour. Now we sell a lot of this. It does very, very well because it's a really, really well made, super affordable Kalila expression. When nowadays most single malts from Islay are becoming ferociously expensive. And just because you're an independent bottler doesn't mean that you're going to struggle to have an age statement, but in this case, when you're creating a brand and you want to maintain that consistency of flavour, it does help to not stick 10 or 12 or whatever on it. Because the minute you do that, the minute you say 10-year-old, that is the bare minimum age that whiskey has to be. The minute you put a teaspoon of 8-year-old, it becomes an 8-year-old. So
this just gives them a lot more flexibility.
It gives, so the flexibility of stock that they can source and use to maintain the consistency. You may well find that some of it could be considerably older than the age statement that they were aiming for in the first place, in order to maintain the consistency. As is the case with the other three. So Ardbeg 10, Bunnahabhain 12, and less so with Bruichladdich because it's not an age statement, but both the Bunnahabhain and the Ardbeg are very likely to have whiskies in there, obviously Bunnahabhain and Ardbeg whiskey, which are older than the age statement on the label to maintain consistency. So they work with a lot of stock to blend.
But I suppose with them, although we're saying it's in theory from one distillery, because they haven't named that, they can put anything they like in there.
Well,
within reason.
Yes, they could. They would struggle to maintain the consistency of flavour if they move, because it's an Islay single malt, and that's what they have set their stall out with. If they then try and replicate that with Ardbeg, or to be honest, the only one that they could use is either that or a heavily peated Bunnahabhain, it would taste different.
Yeah.
It really would. So they need to work with the one, ideally the one distillery, and be able to maintain a consistency of supply.
Now what's interesting, I tried Big Strand some time ago, before I really started drinking whiskies again, and not necessarily liked it.
Right.
But having followed you and done what you've taught me and drunk the stuff you told me to drink, I'm really liking that now.
Yeah, it's good enough.
It is like bonfires on the beach.
It's all there, and once you get past, which for some, when you're first coming into whiskey, it can be a little bit of a struggle to get past the peat smoke. But once you get past that, you can start to see the subtleties in it. And there's some lovely cooking apple, fresh grassy notes, some sweetness as well. I really rate it. I think they've done a cracking job on this. There's a great example of just the tiniest bit, please, just to see what happens. Thank you. And then, as you add the water, you see it go cloudy and a little bit oily. You see the oil slick appear.
Yep.
Long chain esters get pulled out of the spirit that changes the aroma and changes the flavour. There's a whole lot going on chemically once you add the water, and we've deliberately gone for the most neutral, I was about to say tasteless, that would be derogatory, neutral water we could get. Space Like Glenlivet is deliberately neutral because they're targeting top-end restaurants.
Perfectly still.
Perfectly still.
Says it on the bottle. That is really nice. But it's not, I mean, as someone relatively new to whiskies, or at least new to drinking, trying different whiskies, it doesn't reach out and slap me across the face. It's quite gentle. I mean, it sort of, draws you in rather than punches
Yes.
you.
For a peaty whiskey, for a heavily peaty whiskey, should I say, Kalila is very, very approachable, very easy drinking. The peat smoke generally is soft and sweet in almost a Highland peat style, whereas the next one we're going to try is quite different. Thank you.
I think it's better without water, actually. But that might be.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I like the breadth that the water brings to the party. It teases out a little bit of mid-palate sweetness, which I like a lot.
So, Ardbeg.
Right, so we're down to the south of the island now. You've got the three big boys right at the base of the island. Ardbeg, Lefroy, and Lagavulin. Now, soon to be resurrected Port Ellen. But
Yes.
at the moment not. And Ardbeg is a bit of a legendary whiskey, much beloved by hardcore whiskey fans. LVMH owned, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, so the same people who own Glenmorangie, and has been to some extent premiumised since they purchased it. Doesn't take away from the fact that it's still amazing stuff. And Ardbeg, even in the dark days of the 90s, Ardbeg was beloved by whiskey fanatics, absolutely beloved. Helped along by long periods of closure, some legendary whiskies, such as the whiskies from the 70s, late 70s in particular, the 17-year-old Ardbeg, which is sadly no longer with us. And they have stripped it right back because there's very little of it, very, very little. So a lot of aged stock is gone, and they are desperately trying to build their resources back up again so they can start putting out some more aged expressions. But up until now, there are very, very, very few Ardbeg expressions from the distillery. You get one special release a year, which is invariably non-age statement, and each one is utterly unique and utterly brilliant. And you would ask yourself the question, well, how can one distillery put out different non-age statement whiskies from one single malt distillery, and they will be all so different, even though they're all so heavily peated. But to sit down and do a tasting of the previous special expressions of Ardbeg, you really do see how cask maturation makes the most massive difference. It's really, really quite special to do. So yeah, 10-year-old.
I've never seen you rave about a whiskey quite as much as Ardbeg.
Well, I will probably embarrass myself considerably more with other whiskies as we go on. No, I've got a soft spot for it. I have more of a soft spot, if I'm honest, for Bruichladdich, just because of the history with it. I love Bunnahabhain as well. I absolutely love it. Kalila is interesting. It's a great counter. If we get the opportunity to go to Islay, the most amazing juxtaposition is the difference between Bruichladdich and Kalila. Kalila is huge. They have approximately 3 people working in it pressing buttons, but they still pump out amazing whiskey. Bruichladdich is a hive of activity, still relying on Victorian technology, loaded with people running around sometimes like headless chickens, but it's quite a difference to see how 2 completely different operations can make amazing whiskey. Yeah.
This doesn't smell, to me, nearly as medicinal as, say, Big Strand. I mean, I'd smell that and I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, loads of peat.
The medicinal character isn't necessarily about peat. The medicinal character is the distillery characteristic. The peat level is the peat level, and you can order your peat to whatever level you want it to be. Ardbeg 10 will always be using, roughly about 50 ppm, I believe, and that's the expressions character. But Ardbeg isn't renowned for being particularly medicinal. It is renowned for being peaty, heavy, rich, very, very well put together, seamless, and again textural, and that's what Ardbegg's about. It's not about trying to be Lafroig or Lagavulin, especially Lafroig, which has that intense medicinal character.
I mean, I could see people being put off by Big Strand that wouldn't be put off by Ardbeg, just simply on the smell.
Oh, yeah. And a little bit of water does help this, I find. Bottled at 46%, just the tiniest touch, that's perfect.
I'm learning how to water whiskies.
Ideally, we should have a little pipette just to be able to do it a little bit more scientific.
Ed's got hundreds of pipettes. I don't have any.
Well, we can help with that.
Ed's standing behind the camera laughing hysterically at this stage. He's got to drive, I don't.
Yeah, so there we go. It is what it is. We have 4 whiskies in order to do a whole region's worth of whiskies, which obviously isn't fair. But you know, the next time we do an Isla box, there will be an extension to that, and we can show some more interesting, well, not more interesting, but some other interesting expressions of Isla. And we'll look at Lafroig, we'll look at Lagavulin, and we'll look at Beaumont, and Kilhoman as well, up in the north.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.